Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about HOA rules and restrictions that are, number one, very common, and number two, often very annoying. So HOAs are everywhere in Florida. It's estimated that 42% of the population lives within some sort of community, organized community, I should say. And that I mean a homeowners association, HOA, or a condo association. And there are rules to live by. Those are basically their own little governments, and they have their own governing documents that specify what the rules and regs are when you move into that community. So I'm Robin Vakai, certified financial planner and broker owner of Beach Bay Real Estate based in Venice. And what I like to do is help people make informed decisions before they buy a property here. Whether you're relocating or retiring to the sunny South, you want to make sure you're making a good choice. So let's get started with these 15 most common in a lot of the Venice communities. And of course, you have to read each community's documents, but these are some of the ones we hear of a lot. Vehicle restrictions, which include no boats, no RVs, and no trailers. Some communities will permit you to have a boat if you can fit it in your garage, but it must be kept within the garage with the door closed. RVs, they often say in their governing documents, if you need to bring it to the property to clean it, pack it, unpack it, you can do that, but it can't be left parked on the street, and it's only for a limited time duration. So check that if you're interested in bringing your RV to the property to load and unload. Now, no pickup trucks. I talked about this before in a short form video, and we kind of had a lot of going back and forth, but the Florida legislature passed a new law in 2023 that basically said HOAs cannot restrict pickup truck owners from parking their own personal vehicles in their driveways. A lot of older governing documents from communities that may have been from the 70s, 80s, 90s, before pickup trucks were so commonplace, they actually excluded pickup trucks because they always figured, oh, these are just a work truck and we don't want them in our community. Well, now pickup trucks, as we all know, are luxury vehicles, and they're amongst the highest priced vehicles on the road, and lots of Americans drive them. So the Florida legislature was trying to solve this problem by saying, hey, the HOA can't stop you from parking your personal vehicle there. However, the legislation wasn't written that it's retroactive. And since we have something like 15,000 homeowner associations in the state of Florida, it's some crazy number, but it's like that. It's kind of hard to tell those people, hey, sorry you have all those rules and regs, but now they don't apply. So I think what they're going to stick with is most communities will not stop people from parking their personal, F-150 in the driveway. But if your vehicle is a pickup truck and it's lettered with 123 electric or, ABC plumbing, that's going to continue to not be allowed to be parked, because most communities have exclusions against parking of lettered, wrapped, anything with signage on it. And that's because most of these communities have no sign rules, and that's not even on my list. But anyway, that's the reason there. So pickup trucks and commercial vehicles, that's a little sketchy area. A lot of communities have rules against motorcycles. If you have motorcycles, got to be in the garage. They don't want to hear the noise, no loud mufflers, etc. And one community that I read the documents, this is like 5 years ago, but they actually had a restriction that if you had a motorcycle, you had to walk it from your house to the gate to the property to the main road. They didn't want you riding it through the community, if you can believe that. But that was true. So garage doors. Some HOAs require the garage doors to be kept at all times, to be kept closed at all times, unless you're coming in or going out. So a lot of people, if you want to tinker or putter, or you just like to leave your garage door open and let the fresh air in and the heat from your car out, that's going to be a hard no. Most of the communities want the garage doors kept closed. And then we talk about I warn people about the width of the driveway, because pay attention that the driveway is usually the width of the garage door. So it's very difficult for you to park two cars side by side if you have guests and let people in and out of their car. It's hard to do. I know, because I lived in a house in one of those HOA communities, PUD, Planned Unit Development. and had the same problem. I had to petition to, widen my driveway, fill out an application with pavers so that when I had family come over and visit, we could park 2 cars and people could actually exit their vehicles. So that's a consideration. So parking rules, in addition to the garage doors, is another one. Most of these communities have no on-the-street parking and certainly not any overnight parking. And that's basically because most of these communities, the roads inside the community are private. The residents have to maintain them and repave them and all of that. And as such, they don't want, the road may not be as wide as a public road. It's definitely not going to be as wide. And they want to make sure that we can get emergency vehicles through. So if the fire truck or the paramedic comes in the middle of the night, they've got to be able to get through and get around. So they don't want all kinds of cars parked on the street on these already narrow roads. So that's another consideration. Okay, another one that people seem to be surprised about is most of these communities have fence restrictions. I would say the majority of HOA communities in the Venice and certainly Welland Park areas do not permit fences. There are some, and when they do allow them, they have a strict set of rules. What size is it going to be? What height is it going to be? What color? So you're never going to get a 6-foot or an 8-foot privacy type style fence in any of these communities if they are allowed. So know that. Next thing is any exterior modification you make to the house is going to need ARC or ARB, as they're sometimes called, the Architectural Review Board or the Architectural Review Committee that most of these communities have appointed within their governing documents. That committee basically enforces the rules and the design standards, and they take applications. If you say, oh, I want to put a screen, I want to change my coach lights on the front of my house, and that's a whole other thing. But anyway, anything you want to change, whether it's paint, add a screen, change your mailbox, new doors, adding storm shutters, it all is going to require approval. Same with yard and landscaping stuff. Anything you want to change in the yard, you want to add new edging, border edging on garden beds. They may have a particular color you have to use, particular style. Mulch, most of the communities restricted to one mulch color. You can't go and say, oh, I want to put black mulch on everything, which isn't advisable anyway, because the sun is so hot here, you'll literally burn your plants. But they may say, this is the only color, this is the only style of mulch that we can use in our community. Yards and landscaping, while I'm on that subject, most of these communities will never permit bird feeders, bird baths, or fountains. And part of the reason is the bird seed attracts all sorts of rodents and other critters that we don't want running around, which we already have plenty of. So there's that. Now, holiday decorations. People get kind of annoyed about this, but most of these communities have strict rules about when you can put your decorations up and when they have to come down. So if you're somebody that you say, oh man, I love Christmas, it's my favorite holiday of the year, and I like to put my Christmas decorations up on November 1st, right? The beginning of before Thanksgiving, forget it. It's not going to happen. Most of them, I would say, it's Thanksgiving holiday, maybe the start, and a lot of them it's like 3 weeks before the holiday and 3 weeks after, and they want you to take them down. So just be cognizant of that. Now, flags. The governing documents in older communities may restrict every single flag. They may say no flags of any kind. And what I'm going to tell you is they cannot, by Florida law, restrict or prevent you from flying the American flag. So we have legislation on the books here that you can fly the American flag as well as one flag from any branch of the United States military, so Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, U.S. Coast Guard, and also the Space Force. You can fly one of those flags with your American flag or the state of Florida flag, and you can also fly the POW MIA flag. So they couldn't stop you if you wanted to hang 3 flags that met that criteria, you can. Now, they can tell you you can't fly a flag for your favorite football team, your baseball team, your favorite hockey team, welcome spring, happy St. Patty's Day. They can stop you from doing that. And like flags, most communities extremely limit signs, in particular political signs. So there's really no signage. Some of them, hey, a community I used to live in, after the developer pulled out, the residents never authorized approval of for sale signs. Even though the developer used them, we had them all made up. I have 4 or 5 of the signs for the community I'm talking about. And the residents voted it down. Oh no, we don't want any signs. And then when they figured out that they voted down putting up a for sale sign, they were like, well, what do you mean we can't put up a for sale sign? I said, well, if you don't approve it and vote for it, then you can't do it. So they can't hang up any for sale signs either. And that is the case in a lot of communities, or they have a very small sign that they allow you to put up. Okay, another one that causes a lot of angst, because if you're a pet person, I have pets. I have 2 dogs and a cat that I adopted. And a lot of these communities have pet restrictions. So some of them have size restrictions, breed restrictions, number of pets that you can have. Certainly nobody's going to police how many cats you have in your house, but some of the communities do say, especially with condos, oh, you can have 2 dogs up to X. And I will tell you, most of the condos in Venice, first of all, if you're a tenant, most of the governing documents say tenants are not allowed to have pets, and most condos restrict to a very small size dog. So usually 30 to 35 pounds or less. And so all these associations are going to require that all dogs are leashed at all times and must be with the owner, and certainly not left outside or locked on the lanai or on the porch by themselves to bark and cause a nuisance. So that's some of the stuff with dogs. Now, rental restrictions. This is another one. Most HOA communities have rental minimums. I talked in another video about Sarasota County rental rules. If you want to see that, I'll post a link here. But we do have different rules in different parts of the county. The county rule defaults to 30 days minimum, but we have different rules in city municipalities, and we have several of those in the county. But most HOA communities set restrictions, usually 3 months. All these new communities, a lot of them have a 6-month rental minimum. And some of them say if you rent for 6 months, you can only do it once a year. And now most of them will allow you to rent annually if that's what you wanted to do. But I say the same thing, read the docs. Here's another one. Trash cans, okay? You move into one of these new communities, you're like, oh, well, that garage isn't that big. Well, then you get your county or city issued garbage cans, which in most cases, that's what happens. And you're gonna get either 2 or 3, cans. And then the HOA rules say, oh, you can't leave those outside. You've got to bring those inside your garage, and in some of the older communities, they may be kept outside along the side of the house, but they have to be on like an approved surface, pavers, concrete, and they have to be shielded by some sort of fence or shrubbery if they are allowed to be outside. Most of the new communities, Welland Park, they're not going to have trash cans outside, so you should know that. All these communities have nuisance and noise rules. Condominiums typically have in their documents quiet hours, which are typically 10 to 8. All of them say you shouldn't be causing a nuisance to your neighbors, making a lot of noise, letting your dog bark, back to that again, playing loud music. There's always that. So when you move into a community, everybody wants to live in peace and harmony and quiet. Now, clotheslines. A lot of HOAs restrict the use of clotheslines, that you can't put those up, or clothes poles. Remember those old, metal things. Well, even if the governing documents say that, Florida actually has a law. It's the right to dry law. So basically you have a right to dry your laundry, and if you want to dry it outside, you can. Now, HOAs can restrict you from putting up a clothesline or a clothes pole in the front yard or stringing it off your garage door, but they can't stop you from drying your laundry out of sight in the backyard. Again, check the docs. Here's another one, satellite dishes and solar panels. Both of these are protected by law. Solar panels are protected by law by the state of Florida, and satellite dishes protected by federal law. So basically, and this is in a lot of governing documents, you can't put a satellite dish. They can't stop you from doing it even though the documents say that. So, and that's because it's protected by federal law. So, and they may say, we don't want you to put that in the front of the house where it's visible from the street, but I guess also in the language of the law is if you can't get a good signal, putting it in the back where you can't see it, then you're allowed to move it to wherever you can get that signal. So if you want a satellite dish, they really can't stop you from doing that. Same with solar panels, and I'll just add in, it's never a good idea in Florida to put anything on your roof where there's creating an invitation for roof leaks. That's all I'm going to say. Water will find its way down. I wouldn't put any of that on my roof, and I certainly wouldn't recommend that any of my clients do. And from a math standpoint, solar panels just make absolutely no sense to me, no matter how I run those numbers when I see them. So there's that. So now basketball hoops and play equipment. This is another one if you have, younger children or grandchildren wanting to come over, play ball, or maybe you want to play ball. Most of these communities prohibit those either mounted on the front of the house in the driveway or on those huge poles that you can wheel around. So that's usually a no, no, no. And if by some chance they do allow you to have that, it's usually got to be brought inside the garage when you're done using it. So keep that in mind. And the last one is window treatments. There are a lot of governing documents that actually say you can only have, neutral colored or white colored window treatments. Now, why you would have to put in the documents that you can't put newspaper, aluminum foil, or cardboard up to cover the windows, I don't know, because I don't know why anybody would do that, but I've read that in some of the documents. So the point of all this is before you buy into an HOA community, please, please, please read the documents. Ask for a copy and read them and make sure you know what you're signing up for. So anyway, I'm Robin Vakai. I hope you found this helpful. If I can help you with your real estate needs in South Sarasota County, please reach out. And if you want, post a comment on what you think the craziest HOA rules you've heard. All right, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for listening and have a great day.